you. Thank you, all of you. Can you all hear me good? All right. Thanks for joining us this morning. Sometimes I would lay in the garden and pretend that I was a carrot. Sometimes I would curl under the leaves and I became a head of lettuce. Sometimes I would bury my soft paws in the softer earth and I was a rabbit. Sometimes in the garden I was a rock. Sometimes 2 rocks, sometimes becoming 3 rocks. Sometimes in the garden as a rock I was picked up and held cool and smooth in a palm, or warmed by some sun from above. Sometimes in the garden as a rock, I waited hundreds of years, and it was only the wind that moved me. Sometimes I waited thousands of years, and it seemed not even the wind might touch me. Sometimes night would arrive to the garden, with a full moon glowing like the skin of an orange-skinned woman in a more orange dress, and the night would use that moon to say to me, "Look, you are like how I am, and see how bright my body sometimes becomes." Sometimes I wait for spring. Always I am waiting for spring, and for my love to return like it, out of the cold, and with flowers on their fingertips. Come closer. Come closer. Come into this. You are quite the beauty. If no one has ever told you that before, know that. Right now, you are quite the beauty. There is joy in how your mouth dances with your teeth. Your smile is simply a sign of how sacred your life actually is, so step into it. Come closer. Know that whatever God might be, they asked the world around them to help them make something of worth. They woke from dreaming, scraped the soil from spaces, stuck somewhere inside themselves, made you, and were happy. You make whatever that Lord may be happy. Come into this. Come closer. Know that something softer than us, but just as holy, planted pieces of itself into our feet that we might one day dance our way back. Know that you are almost home. Come just a little bit closer. There are birds beating their wings beneath your breastplates, gentle sparrows that ache to sing. Come aching hearts. Come soldiers of joy, doormen of truth. Know that my heart was too big for my body, so I let it go, and most days this world thins me, where I'm just another cloud, forgetting another flock of swans, having shaved off so many of my corners that I have felt at home at times only in the shape of a ball, bending myself so far backwards that the song of my mother believed I was returning home. But believe me when I tell you that somehow my soul still manages to squeeze itself into very narrow spaces. Place your hand beneath your head when you sleep tonight. Perhaps you will find it there, making beauty as we sleep, making beauty as we dream, making beauty as we turn over. When we turn over in the ground, may the ghosts that we have asked our answers of do this turning, kneading us into crumbs of light and into this thing-love thing called life. Come into it. Come, you wooden museums, gentle tigers, little giants. I see teacups upside down glowing across your grins. Your hearts are like my hands. Some days, all they do is tremble. I am like you. I am just like you. I too at times am filled with so much fear. But like a hallway must find the strength to walk through this with me, through this church of blood, bone, and muscle that is ours. There is a doorknob that glows like chance before you. Grab it, turn, and pull. Step through. Back straight, chin up, eyes open, hearts loud. Walk through this with me. Walk through this with me. Thank you. So, I love that this morning, this is the thing that we're talking about. This is the thing that we're listening about. I think for me personally, as not just, I was going to say for me as a poet, but it's not even so much me as a poet, but me as a person, wonder and awe and inspiration are a constant traveling companion through my days. Or at least I desire for them to be a constant traveling companion through my days. When I came to the space that a poem provided me, now, I don't know, 27 years ago, 30 years ago, the thing that it offered me was discovery. It offered me that which is unknown. It offered me a room to wonder inside of. I think when we are growing up in many classroom settings, so much of what we are instructed to write down on a piece of paper is offered up to us with very specific intentionality. They are assignments, And so I think we're very often shaped to move through this world with that intentionality. And that's not to say that I think intention in the world is one that is not needed. But this relationship to that which is known and concrete, I personally think is not needed. And the thing that the poem offered me was the space to step into a room where I did not know the answers. And that room, by me being inside of it and engaging with that mystery, revealed answers to me that I never would have set out to discover what they were if not stepping towards this unknown thing. And I think that in itself is something that is of great importance for us as we go through our days, go through our lives. One of the things that I love is the poet Naomi Shihab Nye. She has spoken to how poetry to her feels a very common, easy thing for humans to approach. And I'm sure there's many folks in the world who would disagree with that sentiment. But, when she speaks to that, a lot of what she's speaking to is that she said that, she feels that we as humans think in poems. And I'm inclined to agree that the brain is such a strange, weird, bizarre machine that it is analyzing and absorbing so much information around it in any given time and is communicating those things to our consciousness, to our body, to our heart. And while it's doing that, it's also being reminded of all these things that we have experienced, that a smell in the air, the light on a table, these things might suddenly trigger some memory from a year past, 5 years past from our childhoods. And so these things just have no filter for entering into us. And to me, that operates like a poem does. Within the space of a poem, that we move through these places where we are suddenly reminded of something that we no longer hold close to us. And, I would take it a step further that not only do I feel that we think in poems, but I think that we feel in poems. And even more than that we think and we feel in poems because we are existing inside of poems. I loved getting to hear both what my fellow panelists, that's such a weird word, shared in that, this aspect of how the world is in constant communication with us, that the world is constantly trying to engage with us. And I think that largely our task when we're moving through the world is not, this idea of inspiration. I think we hold it often as we are then inspired to make something. We are inspired to do something very, very concrete. But the world, I think, is constantly seeking to inspire us to do whatever, inspire us to pick wildflowers, something that seems irrelevant and insignificant, but largely isn't, because the more that we engage with hearing whatever it is that the world is inspiring to us, the more that we are able to start seeing those things and hearing those things on a more regular basis. It's very interesting to me how, as children, we are often seen as being in a chapter of wonder, in a chapter of awe. And that's largely because the world as we know it is not yet fully understood and not yet fully formed. And we are then told that we arrive at a certain age in which the world is fully formed and the world is fully understood, even though the reality of that is so far from true. And so, I think it's very, very important, at least for me, in my day-to-day existence, what are the ways in which that I am seeking to be open, seeking to be aware, seeking to be in observation, and more so being in conversation with what is happening around me. And that's the thing that inspires, say, the poem. But the poem, honestly, the poetry, the words that are put down on a piece of paper are completely irrelevant. The poem is existing and is seeking to communicate itself to us whenever we open our eyes and step forward into our life. And it's irrelevant whether or not that poem actually takes shape inside of us with language and arrives on a page. The poem still exists. And that poem is this world around us, seeking to be in constant conversation with us. What might the world conspire with us? And that thing that the world is conspiring with us, I think largely sits with two purposes. One, for us to have a greater understanding of these mysteries inside of ourselves and a greater relationship with the humans that are experiencing the same conversation with the world around them. And how might those things be shared and passed between us? And so on that note, I wanted to share one more poem with y'all. It's called Things I Love. I think, as I said just now, it is of great importance to me to recognize the ways in which that which we find wonder in, what we find awe in, are things in which that we are able to find community in, find reciprocity in, find humanity in. And so what are the things that we are gathering to our hearts and thus then sharing with others? Things I love. The blues a night sky makes, the bowls it holds for the stars to shine inside of, the sound of a fire moving its tongue against the wood, riding bicycles with friends, learning of the lives of others, getting to know our best and worst birthdays. I love a holy sunset which feels like a sky is praying to me, praying to us, asking us to look at it and know the fierce colors which lay in its clouds, that even the sky needs but the right hour, the right person to look at it, to know what beauty it holds inside, just waiting to pour forth. I love the crows en masse. They're crossing inside this prayer, bunched together in their loudness at day's end, their flight looking like the sky breaking apart to spread itself further. I love us spreading further in order to come in closer, to see what we might arrive at, a wandering with intent. I love not making plans and making plans, scheming schemes, building the idea of an art like it was a boat that becomes bigger upon being greeted by the water it asks to touch its hull. How the ocean wants to hold us, but does not always know how. I love that even the ocean does not know things. Even the ocean struggles to move against its nature and in this way maybe become something more. I love colors, how they lay on us and hold us. When they make an object but a plane of their shade, the way they solid and smooth and spill and wash and pale, or so deep. I love colors so much. How do I love a thing so much with no form, nothing to touch, simply is. Though is this not, I suppose, what all love is? Even an object holding our love is but a placeholder. I love writing love poems, more so the living of them. Love writing in ink a scrap of a note, even as my desk becomes flooded with scraps of notes, whether they say fuzzy rhythmic vocals, or a sunflower taught me a poem, or the emptiness a missing, or are simply measurements for my sleeves. When the sun lands on one spot, I love this. Eating fruit from a bush on the street, I love this. Hugging friends goodbye, even though I hate goodbyes. When full houses become empty, but for me, the piano. I love the piano. I love when someone plays the piano. When you didn't know they could play the piano. When they don't feel they know how to play the piano. But there they are in this soft quiet that kisses the two of you playing it. And my heart in this soft quiet is going from bud to bloom to petals on the floor in one breath. I love that people want to share things with each other, even when sometimes we do not know how to do this. Is this not too what love itself is? You sharing you, and me sharing me, and us sharing and being shared with each other, back and forth, for whatever length always may be. Thank you.